Hey, what's up, guys? Marcus Kingston Kritic here. All right, so today we're gonna talk about Afrobeat versus dancehall. There's a lot of talk going on that Afrobeat is replacing dancehall completely. Reggae is being rendered obsolete, among other things. And there were a slew of articles last year that came out, basically stating that Afrobeat is taking over. So let's talk about it. All right, so the first thing is that when I look at these kinds of trends, I don't want us like to say, oh, them trying to take our thing, meaning, Afrobeat has its roots in reggae and dancehall. You can just listen to any Afrobeat song. You're gonna hear some people talking patois. You're gonna hear familiar production patterns mixed in with other styles, right? So Afrobeat is definitely its own thing right now, but its origins are firmly rooted, taken from dancehall and reggae. So I don't think that's up for dispute. I don't think it's appropriation, as some people would say. But it has become its own specific genre with a specific tonality and sound. So when we look at genres, right, I like to look at two perspectives. One, what is the relevance of the genre? Like, how relevant is it in the public eye, in the global eye, right? How big is it in the pop picture? That's the first thing. The second thing is, how playable is this? Like, how accessible is the music to, people and audiences that play it on a radio? And I think when you compare Afrobeat and dancehall, there is a massive difference between both the cultural relevance and what I call the playability. So let's talk about the cultural relevance first. I'm going to start with Afrobeat, right? I'm just going to use Davido as an example because he is, the Nigerian Afrobeat juggernaut, and last year he sold out the the O2, hear me, Q2. He sold out the O2 Arena in London, like, alone. And that is monstrous. I mean, if you know how big the O2 Arena is, and selling out something like that is just insane. He also sold out Madison Square Gardens, and he's had a run of successful hits. And the thing is that for that many people to go to see one person perform Afrobeat shows that it's relevant, right? And I think this is why when it comes to radio play and DJ play, DJs just go with the trends. You know what I'm saying? If Afrobeats pop in, people want to say, yeah, man, I used to play Afrobeat all the time. So it's just a natural progression that, DJs would jump onto the Afrobeat wave. But the thing is that Afrobeat music is extremely playable. I think sometimes it's like a bit mother goosey, like, ridiculously simple rhymes and lyrics, with that little African inflection for cuteness, Sometimes I find it really corny. Sometimes it works, like, I buy Lamborghini for you. I buy patty for you. Like, I just find it hilarious, right? But it works. And so it's playable. And, it's family-friendly music. You're not going to hear Afrobeat about people killing each other or having raw graphic sex as you'd hear in dancehall. So that's one of the first things. It is quite relevant because people like the music and they will invest in it. And then the second thing is that it's very, very playable. Playability makes it more accessible to more people. Because, yes, I know this is the age of streaming and YouTube, but generally, music is discovered still, in a big part from the radio, right? And if people want to play your music, if people's going to play the music at your house or at a function or a gathering, you're going to be like, oh, who's that guy? Oh, that's Davido. What's that music? Afrobeat. That's how it spreads, right? Let's take a look at dancehall now. Dancehall, let's talk about relevance. Do you think dancehall is currently super relevant culturally, globally? I'd have to say no. Wait for the context. And I'm not saying that like to bash dancehall because obviously as a Jamaican, I'm saying that dancehall culture to me is as vibrant as it ever is. On a global scale, I don't know. You see, when Sean Paul had his breakout year in 2004, I would say then dancehall was relevant. People started kind of getting in. You had the Baby Sham Alicia Keys collaboration. Elephant Man had a monstrous wave, doing tracks with like Janet Jackson. You get me? Mr. Vegas was making some traction. People are starting to say, okay, this dancehall thing is kind of interesting. You get me? Hip hop was jumping on dancehall. We saw Sean Paul and Busta Rhymes. You know, we saw Sean Paul and also this trap group. I don't remember the name, but it had a wave. It was relevant. You know, Blue Cantrell and Sean Paul. You know, Shaggy. Well, okay, it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't me. Yeah, that you know. So Shaggy was there as well. But he didn't have that many people carry the mantle beyond that point. But it was definitely relevant. You get me? And it was definitely playable because Elephant Man had tons of like simple dance music. Sean Paul had all pop dancehall music, meaning no violence, no graphic sex, just have a good time, you know, shake that thing, temperature. You know, it was like brilliant marketing. So to me, I would say that was a period when dancehall was, you know, obviously relevant in the public eye. Sean Paul won a Grammy for his album. Previously, before that, Beanie Man, you know, won a Grammy for his album Art and Life. This was a time when dancehall was, you know, really, really, really hot. And I think the time before that, on a global perspective, was when Shabba Ranks burst onto the scene and really took dancehall to the world, like in a way it was never taken to the world before. So I think they're hot and cool periods for any trend. Cool. So when I say dancehall, I don't think it's relevant in the same way. No, I'm giving it from that perspective, right? I'm not saying dancehall is irrelevant, which is a completely different thing. That means dancehall is not being made, not being played anywhere, and no one is performing anywhere. That's when a genre dies, and the genre has not died. So that's relevant. So now, when you look at playability and access to the music, I think this is where dancehall has always struggled for one reason. You see, a big part of dancehall is what you call esoteric, and it's the knowledge of Jamaican patois, right? So knowing Jamaican patois allows you to understand more of the music, right? It allows you to understand the choruses, the lyrics, slang, and so forth. Most Jamaican dancehall, you know, nowadays it's like dance music, hardcore lyrics, badman tune, gunman tune, girl tune. It's a lot of it is very raw. A lot of it is very patois laced. It's very esoteric. It's very Jamaican. So Jamaicans understand it, and people that maybe know some Jamaicans or have an association with Jamaican culture might be able to get it. But generally speaking, you know, it is not super accessible for the average person. You see, when you hear a Sean Paul song like shake that thing, gala shake that thing, come on get busy, just shake that booty, you can kind of hear what he's saying, and it's cool. You get me? It's like it's playable, it's accessible. But you know, if if the first thing you hear on the radio is like, you know, she love turn back way, beep beep beep, you know, the bleeping out stuff, can't put the pressure upon it, and they just muting words. People are gonna be like, well, why are they muting so many words, right? Because they're saying very explicit lyrics are talking about killing people. So to me, that means the playability factor drops massively when you think globally. Because if you're playing this kind of music in a country where they don't even speak English and stuff is being muted, stuff is not being understood, I think it's not playable, and then it's not accessible. Obviously, there are massive exceptions to the norm, such as Ramping Shop, which was basically the sex dancehall anthem, which hit the Billboard charts, and then Dirty Wine, which is like classic dancehall. You get me? Which spread. But again, like I was, to me, that's like a wave that does not represent the complete nature of where dancehall could be in terms of cultural relevance. Cool? So from that perspective, I think that dancehall has always been a kind of subgenre in its own way, like in a kind of subculture thing, because if you want to break out, you kind of have to be a little bit beyond the raw esoteric nature of dancehall, you know, because even though there's some hot dancehall tracks right now, like right now, I love the Aircraft Rhythm made by Chimney Records, and you know, Idonia's track on it, where I'm saying, what did you know there? What did you know there? Like, if you say that to people, they'll be like, what's that? What's a Jenna? Right? I'm not saying they wouldn't get it, but again, it's esoteric. Jenna is a Jamaican slang. You get me? It would have to be understood what Jenna is, and then as you go through the song and you hear the lyrics, it's wicked lyrics, but it's in patois. You get me? And then if people don't understand the patois, they can't dive deeper, right? So when you come back to Afrobeat now, it's kind of like very, very simple. I buy Lamborghini for you, that kind of thing. And when you look at dancehall songs that have had good crossover success, they've kind of had a similar model when you think about it. So like when you look at Broke Off Your Back by Conscience, which was a big hit globally and even scored him a remix with Chris Brown, it followed a trend that Conscience did of making very, very, very simple choruses that were very repetitive. Like broke off your back, broke off your back, broke off your broke off. Okay, we'll get it, right? Then there was sit down, sit down, sit down, sit down, sit down. And I think there's another one where he just repeats it in a loop. So it worked. And that's actually the hallmark of a group like RDX as well. Very, very, very simple choruses or repetitive choruses that people can get. So people at least get the chorus. And then they vibe, to the lyrics in their own way. Because even when Sean Paul was at the heights of his powers, people may not have understood all the patois, but they definitely understood the chorus. Because, Sean Paul can sing and enunciate the chorus in a way that draws in the audience. So when I think about Afrobeat versus dancehall, I think they have all of these different check marks that kind of give them, the dominant space right now. Because one, it's relevant, It's relevant in the sense that people are willing to invest time and energy to research the music and pay to consume it. The second thing, it's very playable. I buy Lamborghini for you, it's just I buy you soda for your bubbly boy. It's just easy peasy music. It's light, it's family friendly, and I think that's what it is with that. Dancehall, it's still pretty hardcore generally. I know there's a wave now of dancehall dance music, like ding dong and ching ching, but I think that was like it's a wave. I don't know how long that can last personally, because it's kind of like when Elephant Man owned the early 2000s with all the dancing songs. I think it can last for a wave, but then it begins to sound repetitive and it tapers off. So Ding Dong has had an amazing run for like the last 5 years, and I want to see if he can keep it up. He's pretty creative, so I'm sure he can, But the thing with that kind of music as well is that it is also not completely accessible if you're not into dancehall music and dancing dancehall dances. Now we've obviously seen incidents where like Justin Bieber and his team like took dancehall moves that people made, and it's in videos, without the consent or whatever. So I would say in that way, because I said it's a subgenre, people that are aware of music and are connoisseurs of different kinds of music and dancing will be aware of dancehall. But that does not mean it is a global phenomenon in terms of global relevance. And I think that's where Afrobeat is right now. Afrobeat has transcended all borders, and it's gone into the Billboard charts. Afrobeat artists are regularly headlining shows and filling up arenas. And I think when dancehall artists start doing that, if they can do that, then things will change. Because if you ask yourself a question like, could a dancehall artist fill up the O2 Arena? I don't think so. Not right now. Well, maybe Popcorn could do it because, he sold out Wembley and he's had like incredible momentum, and he's had the backing of juggernauts like Drake, and he's done massive collaborations. You get me? But it all falls back to the same thing where it's like, it can't just be one person that makes an entire industry relevant. So there will always be people doing well. So that's why I said it's about the global relevance, not necessarily one person's success to push the genre forward. Because to me, a big part of what I define as relevance is reach, right? Which is why it can't be just Popcorn. It can't be just Coffee or simply Sean Paul. You get me? Because 2 artists, 3 artists, sometimes even 10 can't carry a wave. You get me? I mean, Drake kind of stepped into the game like 2 years ago, and he was doing like a little bit of dancehall type of vibes. And you know, there was a period when Major Lazer was into dancehall, but they came in, they made some hit songs, and they moved on. You know, they moved on to Mumbathon and various other things. You get me? So it is interesting because dancehall obviously has a place and always has had a place. So me in this like breakdown, it's not really a complete versus to me. I'm just trying to look at the different factors between dancehall relevance and just playability. And I mean, I might have to make a second video because I haven't talked about Billboard charts or, you know, top headliners or all these other factors you could bring into play, especially some industry standards and all these kind of things, signed and unsigned artists, management. But yeah, it is interesting, you know. So in terms of just like raw cultural relevance, you know, Afrobeat has it right now because it's transcended all borders and it's really, really big in its own way. I think that you will always have people like a Popcorn and a Coffee who kind of just like, you know, transcend, you know, the expectations of the general audience and the world at large. That's why you still have hits like Ramping Shop and Dirty Wine. In every genre, you're gonna have some kind of breakout song that just infects the world, or an artist whose style and like natural presence, you know, communicates like the core essence of what dancehall is or what reggae is. You always have that. But in terms of raw cultural relevance, where people now begin to adopt these things to create their own versions of it, you know, I don't think dancehall is there at the moment. So it is not, to me, really Afrobeat versus dancehall. It's just like, you know, Afrobeat seems to be on an upward tick, but dancehall is definitely not dead. All right, that's it for my video. Hope you enjoyed it. Please leave your thoughts below and subscribe. You don't know, big ups.